God, money, and discipline. The 3Ds code that will make you rich. But before I tell you more about these codes, I need you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content. Let me ask you a direct question, without beating around the bush. Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, but life still isn't going the way it should? You pray, you work, you strive, and yet something seems out of place. It's as if there's always a missing piece in the puzzle. And here's the controversial part. The problem isn't a lack of faith, or a lack of money, or a lack of effort. The problem is that almost no one has learned to put these three things together the right way. The world has taught you that faith is one thing, money is another, and discipline. Well, discipline has been forgotten in a corner. But real life doesn't work in compartments. When you separate what should go together, you create internal conflict. And internal conflict generates fatigue, frustration, and that silent feeling of living below your potential. The most curious thing? The more you try to accelerate without aligning, the slower everything becomes. It seems contradictory, but that's exactly how it works. Now pay attention to this, because it changes everything. God didn't come to keep you away from prosperity. Money wasn't created to corrupt you, and discipline isn't punishment. It's liberation. When these three elements align, something changes in the invisible first, and then explodes in the visible. You start making better decisions, saying no more often without guilt, and upholding the yes that truly matters. And the craziest thing is that nobody teaches you this code clearly. If you're tired of starting out enthusiastic and ending up frustrated, of promising change and not delivering, of feeling like you were born for more but falling short, stick with me. Because what you're about to hear isn't empty motivation, it's structure. It's not a magic formula, it's fundamental. And when the fundamental changes, everything else follows. The invisible order of life. Why everything falls apart. When the foundation is wrong. Have you ever noticed how many people strive, dedicate themselves, wake up early, but seem to be going in circles? It's not a lack of ability or talent. Very often it's a lack of order. Life works like an invisible construction. If the foundation is crooked, no matter how hard you try to climb, everything remains unstable. And here's the part almost no one likes to hear. It's not about doing more, it's about better alignment. When God, money, and discipline are out of place, effort becomes exhaustion. You know what I mean? That feeling of always being tired, but never satisfied. Perhaps you've already experienced this firsthand. You pray, you ask for guidance, but in your daily life you improvise. Or you chase after money, you work hard. But at the end of the month you don't know exactly where it all went. This isn't bad luck, it isn't persecution, it's internal disorganization reflecting outwards. The truth is simple and harsh at the same time. Life doesn't respond to intention, it responds to structure. When you try to harvest before you sow, or build without a foundation, the result may appear for a while, but it doesn't last. And when it falls hard. Here's a point that's not obvious, but powerful. Before changing your life, you need to change the logic with which you see life. It's not about running faster, it's about knowing which direction to run in. When the order is wrong, even good things become a burden. Faith without direction becomes confusion. Money without purpose becomes a prison. And action without discipline becomes frustration. Adjusting the order changes everything, and this adjustment begins at a level that many people ignore. Exactly where the next point comes into play. God is not a burden. He is direction. The mistake of starting in the wrong place. Many people have a distorted idea about God, as if he were a constant burden, a harsh rule, or a brake on growth. But let me tell you something straight to the point. God is not a weight. God is direction. When you wake up without direction, any path becomes tiring. When you live without a compass, any decision becomes a doubt. The problem isn't a lack of faith, It's trying to organize life by placing God as a detail, when He should be the center. And everything that lacks a center crumbles sooner or later. Perhaps you've already experienced this. You even believe, you even pray, but you live reacting to the day, putting out fires, solving one emergency after another. That's not life, it's survival. When God is out of the center, you try to compensate with effort, control, or anxiety. The mind races, the heart aches, and the silence is unsettling. But when God occupies the right place, something changes inside out. You don't get magic answers, you gain clarity. And clarity even makes problems seem smaller. Here's the point that almost no one delves into. God doesn't eliminate the path, He reveals the path. He doesn't walk for you, but shows you where to step. And when you know where you're going, even stumbling teaches you. But there's a common trap, thinking that spirituality solves everything on its own. It doesn't. It points the way, guides, strengthens, but life continues to happen in the real world. And that's exactly where the next piece of this invisible code comes in, the one that many people avoid, criticize, or treat as taboo. Money is not the problem. It only reveals who you already are. There's a phrase that sounds nice, but does more harm than good. Money doesn't matter. Sounds good, right? But it's not true. Money does matter, not as an end in itself, but as a tool. It doesn't define who you are. It reveals. It amplifies. If there's inner order, it becomes expansion. If there's emptiness, it becomes escape. The mistake has never been money itself, but the relationship people have created with it. And ignoring that doesn't make you spiritual. It only keeps you unprepared. Perhaps you've already noticed how money slips away when there's no clarity. You work, you get paid, you pay bills, and in the end you're left with that strange feeling of, where did it all go? It's not just math, it's mindset. Money responds to decisions, habits, and awareness. Those who spend to fill an emotional void will always be chasing after it. Those who avoid looking at numbers out of fear never build stability. Treating money as something dirty or forbidden doesn't bring you closer to God. It only distances you from responsibility. Here's a little discussed truth. Prosperity doesn't begin in your wallet. It begins in your mind. When you understand that money is a means and not an identity, something changes. You start to organize, plan, study. Perhaps reading something simple like Think and Grow Rich, learning the basics of personal finance, can change your perspective. But beware, none of this holds up without the next element. Because without consistency, even the best mindset is lost. And that's exactly where the most ignored link of all lies. Discipline, the miracle. No one wants to practice. Here's the part that separates those who admire from those who build. Discipline. It's not glamorous, it doesn't get easy likes, and it doesn't go viral, but it works. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when emotions aren't helping. It's waking up on an ordinary day and acting as if it were a crucial day. Many people confuse motivation with commitment, and that mistake is costly. Motivation rises and falls. Discipline remains. It's what transforms faith into practice and intention into results. Perhaps you've experienced this. Sunday night full of plans, Monday full of excuses. It's not a lack of dreams, it's a lack of inner structure. Discipline isn't rigidity. It's faithfulness to what you said you would do. It's reading even when tired, saving money even when you feel like spending it, praying even when it seems like nothing is happening. Small choices, repeated every day, create a silent force that, over time, becomes impossible to ignore. Here's something counterintuitive. Discipline doesn't come from strength. It comes from the weariness of always living the same way. It appears when you decide to stop negotiating with yourself. It's not about perfection, it's about continuity. Those who fail today and come back tomorrow are years ahead of those who give up at the first stumble. And when discipline enters the scene, something starts to align internally. But it doesn't work in isolation. When God, money, and discipline start to communicate with each other, the game changes level, and that's exactly what comes next. When the three Ds align, life stops going in circles. There comes a moment when everything starts to make sense, not because life becomes easy, but because it becomes coherent. When God is at the center, money finds purpose, and discipline sustains the process. You stop living in a constant state of putting out fires. The mind slows down, decisions become firmer, and anxiety loses ground. It's not magic, it's alignment. Most people don't suffer from a lack of opportunity. They suffer from living divided internally. And internal division always exacts a high price. Perhaps you've already felt this conflict. Faith on one side, a chaotic routine on the other, a desire to prosper, but guilt for wanting to grow, a will to change, but a lack of consistency. When the three Ds don't communicate with each other, life becomes an internal tug of war. Now, when they align, something changes in the invisible first. You start to act with more intention, spend more consciously, talk less, and do more. Life doesn't become perfect, but it becomes stable. And stability is what allows for true growth. Here's a detail that few people realize. Alignment generates presence. Your presence changes. You enter places differently, converse differently, make different choices. You don't need to explain yourself so much because your choices speak for you. But this alignment doesn't happen all at once. It's built day by day, in practice, in the small decisions that no one sees. And that's exactly where many people get stuck, because aligning the three Ds requires a real stance. And when you truly take a stand, life starts asking something more of you. And that's what the next part will touch on. Living the three Ds in practice, not in theory. Now let me gently but honestly challenge you. Of everything you've heard so far, what will you put into practice when this video is over? Because understanding is important, but it doesn't transform. What transforms is what you do when no one is watching. God is already available. Money is already circulating in the world. Discipline is already possible. The question is, will you align with this, or will you continue living on autopilot? How many times have you said, "Now it's going to work," and reverted to the same pattern days later? Think honestly, which of the three have you been neglecting? Do you talk about God but live without order? Do you want to prosper but run from financial responsibility? Or are you disciplined, but have you lost the spiritual meaning of what you are building? Real change begins when you stop deceiving yourself and take a simple, yet firm stance. You don't need to change everything at once. Start small. A better schedule. A more conscious choice. A decision sustained for more than one day. Now I want you to interact with me here, because that solidifies the commitment. Write in the comments which of the three Ds you will align first, and what you will do differently from today onwards. Don't write to me, write to yourself. And if this content brought you clarity, do one simple thing. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Here we don't talk about empty motivation. We talk about structure for real life, for those who are tired of just surviving and have decided to live with direction.